Welcome everyone to Hedgerows, Woodlands and Roads, Intuitive Ink Landscapes. Mix up 3 different strengths of ink by adding a few drops of water to the second 2 containers. You have full strength, medium strength and light strength. So I'm just drawing an idea of a horizon line. It's about just below halfway. Try not to do it actually on the halfway mark. It's always a good idea to come below or above the halfway mark. And I'm going to just indicate a bit of a road happening. Then what we're going to do is just have some trees and some more distant trees over here. So let's see how we go. So first of all, I'm going to add a stormy sky using the lightest tone of ink. A little bit of clean water. And we're just going to soften that sky off a little bit, just with a clean water, softening any edges that we can see. Making sure also that you get right to the edges of your painting. So now I'm going to indicate some mountains and just give my trees over here a little bit of an undergrowth to grow from. So again, using the lightest mix, I'm just going to put in some shapes of some hills in the far distance. And again, just softening off with a little bit of clean water. And at the bottom here. And just bring that down. Softening off over here. And then just using the mid-tone, the mid-value, I'm just going to apply an area over here that's a little bit darker. And then over this side, I'm going to do a similar thing, just using the lightest tone to start with. Just adding some undergrowth. And just softening back. You can use tissue just to blot and just add a little bit of texture. Perfect. Now I'm just going to use a little bit of that mid-tone again, just to darken up this area in the foreground. And again, just using the tissue just to add that little bit of texture. It's just screwed up tissue, that's all it is. Okay, Well done. So get yourself up to this stage, and then we'll quickly move on to the next stage when this has just had time just to dry a little bit. Here we are, we're all dry. I've noticed that during the drying process I've lost a little bit of the mountains on this side, so I'm just going to add some of those back in, just with that lightest tone. And just using some clean water again, just to blend out. Okay, and now I'm going to add some distant trees on this side, and just using my spray bottle, and this is just clear water, and I've set this nozzle to make just little droplets like in the first video. I'm going to spray over this side. So I've sprayed up here and also down in this area here. I'm just checking that there's no big puddles. If there is, I'm just sucking those up a little bit. And now I'm going to use my mid-strength ink, the one that we mixed in the first video, and I'm just going to use my stick, and I'm going to start adding some trees over here. So where we splattered into the droplets last time, this time we're just painting into them or drawing into them using the stick. So just being very loose with this. You'll notice I'm using the stick, holding it towards the end of the stick, not down near where I've applied the ink. It tends to make you paint a lot looser and have less control, which is a good thing in this case. So we can just smudge out a little bit down here with some clean water. Again, I'm going to give a spray to this side. And the mid-strength paint. So I'm just working my way along the road here, keeping the tone still quite pale. We can start to add some undergrowth, like the hedgerows. Little scribbles. So now it's time to just add a few squiggles on this side. If you go a little bit heavy in your tone, all you have to do is just blot back a little bit. Just remember, as the road becomes distant, your strokes should be much smaller. Just softening off those edges a little bit where the grasses meet the road. Now I'm going to add some full strength ink, mainly to the left hand side here, to give us some very strong foreground trees, and in this area over here. So using our full strength ink, which is this one, and dipping the stick in. Now if you've still got some spray there, all well and good. If not, just give it another light spray. What we're wanting to do as we make these strokes with a stick, we want to get it into those little puddles so that we get this lovely effect of foliage. So this is full strength, just ink without any water in it whatsoever. So what that's doing is giving us branches and tree trunks that are in front of the paler ones, which appear now to be behind. A little bit of a puddle there that I'm just going to mop up. Lots of strokes. Now, if you find that you're working in an area that has no bleeding happening with the ink, you can just give that just a light spray, and that will help it just disperse a little bit. I've got my work on a slight slope at the moment because I'm finding it easier for you to see with the video, and so I'm just being careful too that I'm not getting any runs down the page. But normally I would work flat on doing this. So by bringing some branches over the ones that we painted earlier, it tells the viewer that these branches are forward and these trees over to the left are much further away. So now we can start to add maybe some fences along the roadway. So we can add some of these logs of wood or fence posts. Now they will get smaller the further away we go, and they will get paler. So by just using the paler ink on your brush or even blotting will fade them out. They'll also get closer together as they go away from us. Just dipping into that lighter coloured ink here, lighter toned ink. And then we'll add some wire. A little bit of a blot here and there just to fade some out. Definitely giving a feeling of going into the distance. Some more grasses along that roadway. And across on this side, gives it a little bit of depth. I like to run a little pathway along my roads just to give an indication of distance. So what I'm doing is just adding some water to my road, letting it bleed out a little bit from the sides. And then we can start to just drag. We can add some from the trees. We could put some shadows coming across. I'd like to see those lines a little bit stronger in the foreground here. Again, giving us a sense of distance. A little blot for some texture. Okay, now I've got just a little bit of sponge. You could use sea sponge. This is just a car wash sponge that I've just cut up into little pieces. I'm just adding some water to it and squeezing it out, and then I'm going to just dip it into the mid-tone ink. We'll just do a little tester here to see what we look like, and that's what I'm looking for. And I'm just going to add some undergrowth to this area in here. Now that has to dry off, and then we will come back and do the final touches. So welcome back. I just let that dry off a little bit. It's still a little bit damp, but not too bad, certainly not wet. All I need to do now is just add, I think, a few more darker branches through here and do some highlights. So I'm going to take the full strength paint. First of all, a little spray again in the center area there. Just the center of this area. And just taking some pure black ink and just adding just a few more of those branches. I just feel as though there's a bit of a gap there that needed addressing. Maybe just a stronger branch coming through there, a stronger tree trunk. And maybe even another one just in here, just a little bit wider to give the appearance of it being closer to us and just that little bit more substantial. I think that's probably enough. If you need to at this stage, address your fence posts, see if they just need strengthening up a little bit. And then I'm going to just go on to using a gel pen. Here I have a gel pen. If you like, you could use a Posca pen. You could use even gouache or white acrylic. And I've also got a Artline drawing system pen, fine 0.4, but just a black sort of fibre tipped pen, or even a black crayon or a watercolour pencil would be fine. So I'm going to first of all just start to just add a few more little branches, just those little finer ones like we did in the first video where we used a pencil. So you can take a little bit of time doing this, so that I won't bore you with every little stroke, but you get an idea of what I'm doing here. You could just add some little finer grasses just down in this area here. Remember, larger and taller, more detail in the foreground, and of course less as we go further away. Gives a real sense of distance. Definitely some coming over into this roadway. Can reinforce some of these fence posts if you like. Adjust the shapes of them a little bit. Again, remembering that they are getting smaller the further away they get. And then we can just start to just add some little detail lines. Some directional lines. But I'm just taking my gel pen. In these darker areas, it really comes in handy to have a white gel pen, or just kind of some white highlight. And I think we're done. Just a little bit of splattering. I always like to splatter my landscapes. It just gives them a feeling of movement. So again, just taking a round brush, and I'm taking some mid-strength paint, or ink I should say, and just taking the time to just do a few little splatters up amongst the trees. Maybe a little bit across the roadway. And just in this foreground area to the right hand side. And I think that's it. So there we have it. A loose landscape in 3 tones of ink with some white highlights, some distant trees and some foreground trees, and the feeling of a perspective or aerial perspective of the road going away from us, with what tells us that is having the road widening as it comes towards us, the taller fence posts and getting closer together, and smaller and paler as they move away. Thanks for watching.